Whispers in paradise, the morning sun cast golden ribbons across the turquoise waters surrounding Coral Haven, a private island that existed on no public maps. Damian Westbrook stood on the marble terrace of his oceanfront mansion, watching a fleet of boats approach his secluded paradise. Each vessel carried a piece of his past he had carefully kept buried for decades. Captain Torres approached with military precision, his weathered face betraying nothing of the confusion that had plagued him since receiving the guest list. The first boat is docking now. Ms. Cross has arrived." Damian nodded, his steel-gray eyes never leaving the horizon. At 52, he had built a technology empire that stretched across continents, but today felt more daunting than any hostile takeover. "Send her to the Blue Lagoon suite. The others should arrive within the hour." Evelyn Cross stepped onto the pristine dock, her journalist instincts immediately cataloging every detail. The island was breathtaking, with its white sand beaches and lush tropical vegetation, but something felt orchestrated about its perfection. She had spent years investigating her half-brother's business dealings, never imagining she would one day stand on his private island as an invited guest. The mansion rose before her like a modern temple, its glass walls reflecting the Caribbean sky. Palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze, and the sound of waves created a hypnotic rhythm that seemed to whisper secrets only the ocean knew. "Ms. Cross?" A young man in crisp white linen approached her. "I'm James, your personal attendant. Mr. Westbrook has prepared the Blue Lagoon suite for your stay." As James led her through corridors adorned with priceless art and windows, offering panoramic ocean views, Evelyn wondered why Damian had suddenly reached out after 20 years of silence. Their last conversation had ended with bitter words about their mother's will. Words that had severed their already fragile relationship. The Blue Lagoon suite was a masterpiece of luxury, with its infinity pool seamlessly blending into the ocean beyond. Evelyn barely had time to absorb the opulence before another boat caught her attention. A man with paint-stained fingers and an artist's observant gaze was disembarking. Felix Hartwell squinted against the brilliant sunshine, his worn canvas bag a stark contrast to the island's pristine beauty. As a struggling artist in Brooklyn, he had never imagined his wealthy cousin would remember his existence, let alone invite him to paradise. The invitation had arrived at his cramped studio apartment, with no explanation, only a first-class ticket and a note. "It's time we talked about grandmother's legacy." The third boat brought Natasha Chen, a marine biologist whose research on coral reef restoration had earned her recognition in academic circles. At 28, she possessed her mother's sharp intellect and her father's gentle nature. Never met her Uncle Damien, knowing him only through her mother's stories of the brilliant but cold man who had cut ties with the family. Natasha's scientific mind immediately began cataloging the island's ecosystem. The coral reefs surrounding the island were remarkably healthy, showing signs of careful cultivation and protection. Someone had invested considerable resources in maintaining this underwater paradise. The final boat carried Vincent Cross, Evelyn's 16-year-old son, whose excitement about the adventure was tempered by his mother's obvious tension. Vincent had grown up hearing whispered fragments about his mysterious uncle, a tech mogul who had become a phantom in their family's history. As the sun reached its zenith, the family members found themselves gathered in the mansion's central courtyard, a magnificent space where a fountain carved from black coral created a mesmerizing display. The air was thick with unspoken questions and decades of accumulated distance. Damian appeared as if materialized from the shadows, his presence commanding immediate attention. He had changed little in the years since Evelyn had last seen him, his dark hair now silver at the temples, his sharp features etched with the weight of untold responsibilities. "Welcome to Coral Haven," he said, his voice carrying the same measured tone that had made him legendary in boardrooms around the world. "I imagine you're all wondering why I've brought you here." Felix shifted uncomfortably, his artist's sensitivity picking up undercurrents of emotion in the gathering. "The last time we spoke, you made it clear we weren't family anymore. That was 8 years ago at grandfather's funeral." Damian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "People change, Felix. Circumstances change. Sometimes we need to confront the past to build a future." Natasha stepped forward, her scientist's curiosity overriding her apprehension. Uncle Damien, this island is extraordinary. The coral reefs are thriving in ways I've never seen.
How long?
Have you been working on restoration here? 25 years, he replied, a hint of pride creeping into his voice. Since I first bought this place. It was practically dead when I acquired it, bleached and broken. But with patience and resources, life finds a way to return. Vincent, emboldened by his youth, asked the question everyone was thinking. So why now? Why bring us all together? Damien looked at each family member in turn, his gaze lingering on. Evelyn, because I've learned that some secrets are too heavy to carry alone, and because tomorrow, everything changes. The cryptic statement hung in the air like morning mist. Captain Torres appeared at the courtyard's entrance, his expression, "Grave, sir, there's been a development. The lawyers have arrived from Nassau, and they're requesting an immediate meeting." Evelyn's journalistic instincts flared. "What lawyers, Damien? What's really going on here?" Before he could answer, a helicopter appeared on the horizon, its rotors cutting through the peaceful afternoon air. The sound grew louder, more insistent, like a harbinger of revelations to come. "That would be the executors of our mother's estate," Damien said quietly. "It seems Helena Westbrook had one final surprise for us all." The helicopter landed on the mansion's helipad, and 3 figures in business attire emerged, carrying briefcases, and wearing expressions of professional solemnity. The peaceful paradise suddenly felt charged with anticipation and dread, as the afternoon sun began its descent toward the horizon. Painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, the family members found themselves standing at the threshold of revelations that would reshape everything they thought they knew about their shared history. The island that had seemed like a refuge now felt like a stage, carefully prepared for the final act of a drama that had been decades in the making. Whatever secrets Damien had summoned them to confront, there would be no escape until the truth was finally revealed. Tides of truth. The conference room in Damien's mansion felt smaller than its actual dimensions suggested, as if the weight of family secrets had compressed the very air. Robert Sterling, the lead attorney from Nassau, spread documents across the polished mahogany table, while his 2 associates flanked him like sentinels of legal protocol. "Before we begin," Sterling announced, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, "I must inform you that Helena Westbrook's final will contain stipulations that have remained sealed for 15 years as per her explicit instructions." Evelyn leaned forward, her journalist's instincts fully engaged. 15 years? Mother died in 2010? Why would she seal portions of her will for so long? Damien remained silent, his fingers drumming against the table in a rhythm that matched the distant waves. He had suspected this day would come, but the reality of it felt surreal. His mother had always been 3 steps ahead of everyone else, orchestrating events from beyond the grave. Sterling activated a large screen mounted on the wall, and suddenly Helena Westbrook's face appeared, recorded in what appeared to be a private study. Even in the digital medium, her presence was formidable. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, her green eyes sharp with intelligence and something that might have been regret. "If you're watching this," Helena's recorded voice filled the room, "then my children have finally been brought together on Coral Haven. Damien, I know you've been protecting this island and its secrets, but the time has come to share the burden." Felix shifted uncomfortably in his chair. What burden? Grandmother Helena was always so composed, so in control. What could she possibly have needed to hide? The recording continued, and Helena's expression grew more serious. "In 1962, I made a discovery that would change not just our family, but potentially the world. Beneath Coral Haven lies something extraordinary, something that powerful interests have been searching for decades." Vincent's eyes widened with teenage fascination, like treasure, pirates. "Not treasure." Helena's voice carried a weight that silenced the room. "Something far more valuable and dangerous. A naturally occurring compound in the coral formations beneath this island that has remarkable properties. Properties that could revolutionize medicine, energy production, and materials science." Natasha's scientific mind immediately engaged. "The coral reefs I observed today, they're not just restored, they're enhanced somehow. The growth patterns are unlike anything in nature. Damien finally spoke, his voice heavy with years of carrying this knowledge alone. The compound affects cellular regeneration at a molecular level. Mother discovered it by accident when she was researching marine biology in graduate school. She bought this island to protect it, to study it responsibly. Sterling cleared his throat and consulted his documents. According to the sealed provisions, Helena Westbrook established a trust that would activate upon specific conditions. The primary condition being that all her direct descendants would be brought together on this island. All her descendants? Evelyn's voice carried a note of suspicion. There are only 4 of us here. The attorney's expression grew uncomfortable. Actually, there are 5 beneficiaries named in the trust. Before anyone could respond, the conference room door opened and Manuel entered. The island's caretaker was a man of perhaps 60, with weathered hands and eyes that held decades of secrets. But he moved with quiet dignity, not the deference of a servant. "Hello, my family," Manuel said softly. The silence that followed was profound. Damien closed his eyes, finally understanding the full scope of his mother's revelations. Evelyn stared at Manuel, her mind racing through implications and connections she had never considered. "Manuel is Helena's eldest son," Sterling explained. "Born in 1958, before she married your father, Damien. She was 19 and unmarried, and the social pressures of that era forced her to make an impossible choice." Manuel took a seat at the table, his presence transforming the family dynamic instantly. "She gave me to my father's family in Cuba, but she never forgot me. When she acquired this island, she brought me here. I've been protecting this place, protecting all of you, for 30 years. Felix found his voice first. "You're our brother? Our half-brother?" "I am," Manuel replied, simply. "And I know things about this island, about the compound, that even Damien doesn't know." The revelation hung in the air like a storm cloud. Evelyn's analytical mind was processing the implications at lightning speed. There are 5 beneficiaries. Then the trust requires unanimous consent for any decisions about the island's future. Helena's recorded voice resumed, as if she had anticipated this moment. "The compound beneath Coral Haven has attracted attention from various governments and corporations. Some want to weaponize it. Others want to exploit it commercially. I've spent decades keeping it secret, but I won't live forever." Natasha leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her shock. "What exactly does this compound do?" Manuel stood and walked to the window overlooking the ocean. "Come with me. It's easier to show you than to explain." The family followed Manuel down a hidden staircase that led to a private laboratory built into the island's foundation. The facility was stativizing, fire, rivaling any research institution in the world. Tanks filled with coral specimens lined. The walls and monitoring equipment hummed quietly in the background. "Your mother was brilliant," Manuel said, activating a display screen. "She discovered that the coral here produces a unique enzyme that can accelerate healing and extend cellular life. But it only works in its natural environment." The screen showed microscopic images of coral formations, their structures unlike anything in textbooks. The patterns were almost crystalline, with a luminescent quality that seemed to pulse with life. "She spent 40 years studying it," Manuel continued. "Testing it, understanding its limitations, and most importantly, protecting it from those who would abuse its power." Damien joined Manuel at the console, his expression pained. 3 years ago, a consortium of pharmaceutical companies discovered references to Mother's research. They've been pressuring me to sell the island. "And you've been refusing," Evelyn said, understanding dawning in her voice. "At considerable personal cost," Damien replied. "They've made my life difficult, professionally and personally. But I gave Mother my word." Vincent was studying the coral samples with teenage fascination. "So this stuff could, cure diseases and make people live longer?" "In theory," Natasha said, her scientific training making her cautious. "But without proper study and regulation, it could also be incredibly dangerous." Sterling cleared his throat from the laboratory entrance. "Which brings us to the trust's primary stipulation. Helena Westbrook's will requires that all 5 beneficiaries must agree on the island's future within 72 hours of this meeting. Or, the entire estate will be donated to international conservation organizations. The weight of the decision settled on the family like a physical force. Manuel turned from the console, his expression grave. There's something else you need to know. Yesterday I detected unauthorized boats near the northern reef. Someone is watching us. Damien's expression hardened. How many boats? 3 there. Maintaining distance, but they're definitely conducting surveillance. The family exchanged glances, the Paradise Island suddenly feeling more like a fortress under siege. Outside, the sun was setting over the Caribbean, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. But the beauty of the moment was overshadowed by the magnitude of the choice they faced. We have 72 hours, Evelyn said quietly. 72 hours, too. Decide the fate of something that could change the world. As night fell over Coral Haven, the family members found themselves united by blood and divided by the weight of an impossible decision. The island's secrets had been revealed, but the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The inheritance of waves, the dawn of the third day, brought with it an urgency that seemed to electrify the very air around Coral Haven. Damien stood in the observatory tower of his mansion, watching through high-powered binoculars as the surveillance boats had moved closer during the night. What had been distant specks on the horizon were now clearly visible vessels, their intentions no longer subtle. We're not waiting for our decision, he called down to the family, gathered in the main hall. Whatever consortium is behind this, they're preparing to make their move. Vincent pressed his face against the window, his youthful excitement tinged with genuine concern. Are those military boats? Manuel joined Damien at the observation post, his weathered hands steady on a pair of binoculars. Private security, but well-armed. I recognize the configuration. These are the same people who've been pressuring your uncle for years. Evelyn paced the marble floor, her journalist's mind working through the implications. If they're willing to use intimidation tactics, then whatever this compound can do is worth more than we initially understood. Natasha emerged from the underground laboratory, her face flushed with excitement and concern. I've been analyzing the coral samples. All night? The regenerative properties are extraordinary, but there's something else. The compound seems to respond to environmental stress by becoming more potent. What kind of stress? Lix asked, looking up from his sketchpad where he had been drawing the coral formations from memory. Climate change, ocean acidification, pollution, Natasha explained. It's as if the coral is evolving to protect itself and anything exposed to its enzymes. This isn't just a medical breakthrough, it's potentially a solution to ecological collapse. Sterling had arrived early that morning with Judge Patricia Reeves joining via video conference from Nassau. The judge's stern expression filled the large screen in the conference room as the family assembled for the final phase of Helena's elaborate plan. You have 6 hours remaining, Judge Reeves announced. The trust requires unanimous consent from all 5 beneficiaries. I understand the circumstances have become complicated. Complicated is an understatement, Damien replied grimly. We're essentially under siege. Manuel stepped forward, his quiet dignity commanding attention. There's something I haven't told you. Your mother anticipated this moment. She prepared for the possibility that external forces would try to claim the island. He produced a weathered leather journal from his jacket. Helena spent decades documenting everything, compound's properties, its potential applications, and most importantly, its limitations. She believed that knowledge shared responsibly could benefit humanity, but knowledge hoarded or weaponized could destroy it. Felix closed his sketchpad, his artist's intuition sensing the approaching climax. What did she want us to do? She wanted us to choose? Manuel said simply. Not just about the island, but about what kind of legacy we want to leave. Evelyn moved to the window, watching the surveillance boats maintaining their positions. We refuse to sell. They'll find other ways to get what they want. If we agree to their terms, we lose control over something that could help millions of people. But there's a third option, Natasha said, her scientific mind finding patterns the others had missed. The trust doesn't just allow us to keep or sell the island. It allows us to establish a research foundation. Sterling consulted his documents. That's correct. Helena included provisions for converting the estate into an international research facility with all 5 beneficiaries serving as permanent board members. Vincent's face lit up with understanding. So we could study the coral, develop treatments, but keep it protected from corporations and governments. In theory, Damien replied. But it would require significant resources, international cooperation, and the ability to defend our research from those who would exploit it. The sound of helicopter rotors interrupted their discussion. Through the windows, they could see 2 aircraft approaching from different directions. The surveillance boats had begun moving closer to shore. "Decision time," Manuel said quietly. "Judge." Reeves's voice crackled through the video connection.
"I'd."
"I'm afraid circumstances are forcing an immediate resolution. I'm receiving reports that legal challenges to the trust are being filed in multiple jurisdictions. Someone is trying to bypass your decision entirely." Damien's expression hardened with resolve. "Then we make our choice now." He turned to face his family, the weight of leadership settling on his shoulders. "I vote to establish the research foundation. The compound stays protected, the research continues, and we maintain control over how it's used." Evelyn nodded firmly. "Agreed. As a journalist, I've seen what happens when corporations control information that should serve humanity. The foundation gets my vote." Felix stood, his artistic soul moved by the vision of creation rather than destruction. "I may not understand the science, but I understand the importance of protecting something beautiful and rare. Count me in." Vincent looked to his mother, then to his newly discovered Uncle Manuel. "If this stuff can help people and save the environment, then yeah, absolutely." All eyes turned to Manuel, the eldest son who had guarded the island's secrets for decades. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he considered the magnitude of the moment. "Helena always said that the ocean doesn't belong to any one person," he said slowly. "It belongs to everyone, and everyone deserves to benefit from its gifts. I vote for the foundation." Judge Reeves nodded approvingly. Unanimous consent achieved. The Westbrook Marine Research Foundation is hereby established, with all 5 beneficiaries serving as permanent board members. Sterling began processing the paperwork with practiced efficiency. "The legal framework is already in place." Your mother was remarkably thorough in her preparations. Outside, the surveillance boats had begun to retreat, their operators apparently receiving word that legal acquisition of the island was no longer possible. The helicopters changed course, heading back toward the mainland. "I'll be back," Damien warned. "This decision means we're committed to protecting this place for the long term." "Then we'd better get to work," Natasha said, her scientific enthusiasm infectious. "We have decades of research to organize, international partnerships to establish, and a world to change." As the family worked together to contact marine research institutions around the globe, the island seemed to exhale with relief. The coral reefs continued their ancient work of growth and renewal, now protected by the united determination of Helena Westbrook's children. Vincent stood on the beach that evening, watching the sunset paint the ocean in brilliant colors. Manuel joined him, the 2 representatives of different generations united by their shared inheritance. "Grandmother Helena must have been amazing," Vincent said. Manuel smiled, his eyes reflecting the wisdom of years spent protecting the island. "She was. But I think she would be most proud of what we decided today. We chose to be guardians rather than owners." Felix emerged from the mansion, carrying a large canvas, his artistic interpretation of the coral formations glowing with bioluminescent imagination. "I want to create a series of paintings that show people what we're protecting. Art can reach hearts that science alone cannot touch." Evelyn was already on her satellite phone, arranging interviews with marine biologists and environmental journalists. "The world needs to know about this place, but on our terms. We control the narrative." As the stars emerged in the Caribbean sky, the Westbrook family gathered on the beach around a small fire. The island's secrets were no longer hidden, but they were protected by something stronger than secrecy: the united determination of a family that had chosen love over profit, cooperation over competition. Damien looked at his siblings and nephew, realizing that his mother's final gift had been more than just an island or a scientific discovery. She had given them each other, and in doing so, ensured that her legacy would continue for generations to come. The waves lapped gently against the shore. carrying with them the promise of tomorrow and the certainty that some treasures are too precious to be owned by any one person. They belong to the world, protected by those who understood that the greatest inheritance is not what we take, but what we choose to give.